Happy Sunday, apprentices. So when you were in high school, think all the way back when you were in high school, just about to graduate. Were you told the only way to be successful is to follow the path of traditional education? Do you still believe that? That's what's next on today's show. Trading Forex or any other financial instrument carries substantial risk. The topics discussed on this show are the views of the host and the producers only. You should consult with your financial planner before investing in Forex or any other financial instrument. Don't be a dumbass.
Welcome to the Day Trading Plumber, episode 46.
46, yeah.
I'm Matt Simpson, but you're not here for me.
Well, I think you're going to play a big role in tonight's show.
How's that?
Because, let's just face it, you're more traditionally educated than I am.
Yeah, how'd that work out for me?
Well, judging by the shirt you're wearing, you'd rather be grammatically correct than just correct. I mean, I don't get the statement you're trying to make there. Dude, it's fine. We'll find the cap later.
It's all right. You're not expected to. I dropped the caps on the floor.
I couldn't get the pun, dude. Like, is it spelled wrong? Because that would be funny.
It's lost on you if I have to explain it.
That's why we have you here, Matt. So tonight we're going to talk. It's a little off trading. We'll pull it in, I promise you.
What is this warm beer?
Dude, it's in the fridge all day.
All right.
Actually, I pulled it up here an hour while you're getting the equipment set up. But we're going to talk about the status quo that, if you're a Gen Xer, maybe millennials, I'd say millennials are in that. Definitely the generations before me, before Gen X, the boomers. We were all told when we were in high school, state-funded education, you better go to college or you're going to be a loser, right?
That's particularly true with private education, by the way.
Right.
Private education does not push.
Well, it's in the name, prep school.
Okay.
We're prepping you for the next level, right? And I will tell you, the pressure got laid on thick, especially because I was an athlete. And I had a lot of scouts looking at me, both in wrestling, football, not really baseball, even though that was the sport I was best at. Just my high school coach was horrible. He didn't even come to practice. It was like, you better go to college. And I was the first one in my family to ever go to college. My dad was a bricklayer. Later on was a UPS driver with a hurt back, wore down knees, and eventually died from bricklaying. It gave him a lung disease that killed him and my grandpa, the bricklayer. So, he was always telling me, use your brain, not your back. And there's just a lot of pressure. You need to go to college.
Well, hang on. This is important. That message was prevalent in the 50s. And that comes from veterans coming back from the war. Okay. When was your dad born?
49.
Right. So he was a boomer, right? And they had the GI Bill. We had tract housing as a result of World War II. And the federal spending on veterans, rightfully so, right? And the message was, now we can really push people working smarter and not harder. And it's come full circle, because now we're back to people working hard, but also smarter. What's happened now is, we're 2 or 3 generations into people hearing working smarter, not harder. And they think that means sitting on your ass in an air-conditioned office like a purchasing agent for some mechanical contractor and just pushing buttons and highlighting stuff all day. And people forget that, no, you have to earn every minute of every day.
Yeah. And, and then then you get into the generations we're seeing now. I always ask myself, what's going to happen to the kids that got the participation trophies?
We're seeing it now.
Right. Like you said, their idea of work smarter is, well, why work at all if someone's going to pay for me? Right? I can throw a temper tantrum and someone will pay. But, the point of this show is, I hope there is a 18-year-old or a young 20-year-old that is listening to this show and seeing there is other options than the traditional education system. Now, it's not that I hate it. It's not that I think it's not for everyone. It's just you need to understand the financial burdens fully before you commit to it. Because how many of your friends went to college, whether daddy paid for it or they, took on the loans and debt, partied for 4 years, and then they get chewed up, spit out, told the whole time, hey, when you graduate, everyone says you're going to be successful if you go to college and you're going to have a degree and just get that degree. It's going to open so many doors. And they're massively let down because the day you graduate with 8,000 other kids with that degree, if you weren't already working in the summers, if you weren't already making connections, if you weren't already getting work experience, it's okay. You're going to get a job. It's going to be about a third of what you've been thinking you're going to make. And then that's going to kick you right in the ego balls. And then you're going to go, well, I was told you're going to be let down, and you're going to look at that loser friend who started plumbing the summers he was in high school, and then started working for some guy that ran a small business. And then now he's leading a crew. By the time you graduate college, he's leading a crew making 80, 90 grand a year, possibly doing his own side work or started his own plumbing business if he was, ambitious and gunning for it. That's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people. It's kind of maybe why we're seeing all this. It's unfair. It's unfair that this happened to me.
What do upper middle class and wealthy parents do for their children when they're born?
Start a college fund.
With money. That's exactly right. And why is that? Because
society puts that pressure. I get it all the time. So you started a college fund? And I'm like, yep. Is it I'm going to sound pretty stupid here, the 520R or, this traditional, Matt's going to look it up for me. So the traditional way, the Gerber baby fund, as you could picking up my sarcasm here.
It's the 529 college savings
plan. Oh, 529, not the 520R. Okay. So this program locks up the funds. The state and federal government allow you to put aside some of your money tax deferred, but it has to be spent on college.
And it has to be spent in the States. And for an international family like me, if my kids decide they want to go to school in England, where does that money go?
Well, you lose it.
That's right.
And what's just stupid to me is my kids are 5. Most people start these long before they're 5 because they're, I'm not going to say any names, but their MLM money manager company reached out to them and said, you get those kids college savings? Let's sell you that plan. People just listen to this guy, drove up in a Mercedes, tell him everyone's doing it, just like term life insurance. And they lock up your money. They force you to spend it on college. And like you said, has to be in America. So I don't know about you, but I don't like the government or any entity telling me what I need to spend my savings on. Yeah, I have college funds for my kids, but I've taught myself or have educated myself through means on my own to be able to manage that on my own. Now, we're going to get into a little parental, at least my perception. I'm not going to tell my kids I have their college paid for, because I think that's where parents go wrong. They feel like that burden is on you as a parent. No, that burden's on my kids. For instance, if my girl is good at school and shooting for the moon and wants to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, where the traditional liberal college is the way to go, I'm going to help her out. But if my son, who's much more mechanically inclined, can't pay attention, I mean, at least the early signs I see, can't pay attention, he's exactly like me, right? He's super smart. He figures stuff out within 5 minutes and then he moves on. School's not going to be his best friend.
He'd be better off getting a nice Lincoln welder.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to love shop if shop's even around anymore. He would love computer, maybe, right? He's showing a lot of gaming skills, which is a job now, by the way.
I'm aware.
I think one of the best analogies I've heard recently is our education system. It's a lot like if you took an alligator, a monkey, a fish, and a house cat. You take all those animals and you're judging them, grading them, saying who can climb the tree. The monkey's going to win every time. The monkeys, the good readers, the good spellers, the kids who could listen to a teacher and navigate the politics of school, they're going to be, at least out of the gate, labeled, that's a good kid right there. Maybe you're picking up my sarcasm, but I was given zero chance. I was a good kid. I was never disruptive in school, but I had to go to the special class. I was in class with all of the kids that moved here from Mexico who couldn't speak English, like ESL class. And we had lunch at different times. If I had to take a bus, it would have been the short bus. I mean, I had learning disabilities, or at least was labeled early on. Luckily, right about 8th grade, we moved to rural, small podunk town, farm town, where, you know, they just took my word for it. Do you have any special? No, hell no. And they're like, all right, we'll just throw them in there with the general population. And off I went, right?
You got put into Gen Pop?
I got put in Gym Pop. Obviously struggled through English, but excelled in math. And, you know, I was very charismatic. It's amazing how far you can go in this world. If you're social, you get people to trust you by being genuine and honest. I mean, I would tell my English teacher, look, I don't see things the way you do. I'm not asking for any special conditions or for you to spend extra time with me. It's just, it's going to take me longer and I'll put the work in. But dude, I'm going to be a C plus. C plus to me in English is like A plus, right? Just need to pass. And you know, I want to be the voice for all those people out there. The alligator, the fish, and the cat.
Pick an uglier animal.
Well, the cat could climb the tree.
All right.
The alligator and the fish, dude, they're out there in the shop class. They're the ones taking the heads off their motor, right?
Just to see what's in it.
Right. They're the ones who become plumbers, mechanics, all of us losers that if you're a Gen Xer, you're, what do they call that? Your counselor in the, yeah. I keep wanting to say human resources person, but that's in my work career. But your counselor, the one that probably came to you and went, look, if you don't start getting better grades.
Oh, your college advisor?
Right. And then, if you don't go to college, you might make 40 grand a year. And I remember mine specifically saying when I was teetering, I was like, well, 40 grand a year is a lot of money, right? Back then, decent living. And I was gauging off, my mom was making 30 grand a year.
How did you know that? How did you know how much your mother made?
I asked questions.
And she told you?
Yeah.
See, that's different in my house. I never knew how much my parents made. And I just learned this year that my mom never knew how much my dad made.
Well, that's a thing.
That's a whole thing.
Yeah, my mom was pretty open, right? And she's a single mom raising us. And I watched her wear the same pair of shoes for 5 years. I watched her get up every morning and go to work. I watched her cry on Christmas when we got underwear and socks,
In fact, it's important that you bring that up because I asked a friend of mine who we both know, who's a dear friend of mine. I asked her that same question last year. And I said, how did you ever know? Why would you even have those conversations? And she said, because poor people talk about money differently from people who aren't poor. She said it changes the conversation. It's just different. And that really shook me to the core. I'll never forget her saying that. It's just different. And the point is that, yeah, the wealthy, the middle class, whatever you want to call them, upper middle class, money it's not taboo. It's just impolite to talk about it as openly as the poor do.
Right.
And I don't know why. And I still haven't answered that question. But it's interesting because poorer folks can really make money stretch. And wealthier folks, they don't necessarily stretch the dollar per se. Like when it comes to meals, you don't cook a batch and then that's all of your lunch for the next week. The wealthy don't do that as much. They just stop buying stuff that they don't need. So it's different. Whereas the poor just don't buy stuff they don't need ever.
Right. I will tell you, coming from ramen, hey, I got a whole case of ramen on sale. And it was like, lunch is made. Like I remember in high school, I got free lunches because apparently, now I know we qualified for, and it was, I had to go in a special line in the beginning of the week. And, my mom would be like, make sure you go get that punch card. And I was a big kid. So I would run out of punches by like Tuesday because you could go through the line. Luckily, I had really good friends. They weren't wealthy.
Who had good parents.
Who had great parents.
Right.
Well, not that my mom wasn't great, but I think they all kind of knew, but they never made me feel inferior, right? I was a good athlete, but I'd hang out at my friend's house. They would buy me lunch just to have my company, right? They'd be like, hey, dude, let's ditch school and go to Taco Bell. They'd be like, it sounds awesome, but, I can't leave. I don't have a car. I don't have any money for Taco Bell. Oh, well, come with me. I'll buy you tacos. 59-cent tacos back then. 59, 79, 99. But yeah, I mean, it was a rough upbringing. So you can imagine the pressure. You need to go to college, right? Even if coming from my mom, my dad, we need to break the cycle. And I got good grades. Believe it or not, struggling with English. I was a B plus average student, great athlete, starting to have colleges, give me scholarships to go to their school. And I ended up getting one. I went to Northern Colorado on a wrestling scholarship.
Go Bears.
Go Bears. Just did not. I mean, we're being honest here. When I checked in, that's when I started getting the, wow, you're way behind, right? Like English wise, not because I went to a very small rural, whatever school. We're already behind, right? So where I graduated at English, probably the lowest level you could. When I went to college, you're like, oh, you're going to have to take, you won't be in like college credit English by, 2 years. So I was in, once again, now I'm in the stupid kid English, but math and science, I'm excelling. I had good grades in college because I excel in an environment where the teacher's like, I don't care if you come. I don't care if you listen to a dang word I said. My job's not to worry about where you're at anymore. So I could pretty much figure it out, show up, take test, and, lots of wrestling practice. We had to have all of our classes done by 1 p.m. So I had to start early. About a year and a half into college, I started realizing, wow, all I do is play Mario Kart, smoke pot, wrestle, and I'm going into debt. Even though I had a scholarship, it wasn't a full ride. And now, I'm accumulating, $5,000 a year debt. And you got to pay the dorm fees and the meal tickets. And I just didn't see the value. And I remember spring break, my second year, my mom and my stepdad were splitting up. So my mom had the farm all to herself. So it's a really easy, great excuse. Well, I got to help my mom. And I did. I had to help her clean it up, the chickens, the pigs, and she had made her mind up she's going to sell it. So I helped her out, and that's when I became a full-time plumber. I was plumbing in the summers and doing some landscaping stuff all through college and high school. But that's when I became a full-time plumber. But I still had that persona like, oh, I'm going to go back to school, or I'm going to do something. I'm not going to be the plumber. But when I got in that environment of plumbing, they paid for my school, right? Which, wow, a company will pay for my schooling if I work for them. So now I'm getting paid to further my education. Now, I'm not going to say it was easy. I had to work 8-9 hours a day as an apprentice plumber, which we all know the crap you go through, and then go to school 3 nights a week when you're, a young 19-year-old. Commitment. I look back at those years. I mean, what a great opportunity. Later on in my plumbing career, I was the guy recruiting 18-year-olds out of high school and telling them, like, look, I didn't know how I was going to pay for college. Look, I'll pay you to go to school. And they're like, what? Yeah. Come put an honest, hard work day in. You'll get paid. I think at the time, apprentices making $16-17 an hour, which I had to be like almost journeyman to make. And I'm like, yeah, you'll make $16-17 an hour. I'll put you through school. You'll almost have an associate's degree by the time you finish school.
You were working a job fair in a school gymnasium? You were in
No,
the booth?
we never went that bad, but it was more like I was teaching at a vocational school, like for troubled kids. And they would reach, they had teachers or educators at that place that would reach out to local high schools. And let's just face it, if you work with kids, if you teach kids, the ones that are going to be, he has a chance. And then you're like, dude, you need to go to the military. You need to go trade school. You got shitty grades. We barely passed you just so we don't need to see you anymore. Which is pretty sad because some of those kids could have a chance. Someone just puts a little effort into them. And, the trades, it sucks that we have to target those people because I've watched college kids. This was kind of my favorite interviews. I'm a mechanical engineer because, I worked for a mechanical company that hired engineers, hired plumbers, hired sheet metal guys, hired project managers, hired CEOs of other companies, you name it. But I used to love the ones that were college educated, right? I got a degree and just maybe found a job, didn't work, bouncing around. Dad's putting pressure on you now. And I want to be a plumber. Right? And you're like, well, I know you're book smart. But, are you going to be able to step all the way back down? Because I know where you're at in your head. You think you have an edge because you went to school to be a mechanical engineer. But let me tell you, you don't know shit, especially plumbing wise. You know the terms, you know the math.
You don't even know that you need to prime your PVC.
Exactly. Or, a floating underground. So it was tough. And I had a lot of college people get laid off, college educated people get laid off from their job. And, construction's booming. And they're just like, I need a job. And what sucks is they're coming to you at like 35. And they're just getting worked over by these 18-year-olds. It's not like the military, right? If I tried to go in the military right now at 41, even though I'm in probably pretty close to best shape in my life, my college wrestling dude would probably kick my butt. I would get killed. And those drill instructors would be like, you old son of a bitch, you better get up that. It would break me. And, it's sad because a lot of people think the traditional ways of schooling is the only way to be successful. But I'm here to tell you, this day and age, technology, online courses, YouTube. I mean, this stuff didn't exist when I was in school. Do you know what you can learn on YouTube with a day off? Which hopefully with this COVID and people being forced to be at home, a little sidetrack, I belong to a Facebook group called Dads with Daughters. And COVID has affected a lot of dads out there. And I was in this chat with a bunch of these guys. Hey, man, who else is laid off and just playing Call of Duty Warfare? But here's my call sign. Let's group up and have Dads with Daughter, which sounds really fun because I have Call of Duty Warfare. I play it with my son. But I was like, wait a minute. I was like, hey, instead of playing Call of Duty while you're laid off, why don't you try to learn a new skill? I just happen to be in that business. Check out my podcast. And, I got a really good response. But I was like, man, don't waste your time. Don't, just because you're labeled a plumber or an electrician or a senior analyst for data, whatever, that got laid off. It's no stab at you, bro.
Business process analyst.
Business process analyst. Okay.
And then operations manager. And then not.
It doesn't matter what you're labeled. Just go out and educate yourself. There's lots of free education that's going to get you to where you pretty much know the ins and out. Then there's much cheaper education, opposed to, Harvard. I can't even imagine what Harvard cost.
Well, fortunately for you, you have a producer.
Oh, I have a business analyst.
Business process analyst.
A business process analyst.
I went to Metro State University, which then was Metropolitan State College of Denver, which is a commuter school.
Who would name that? Metropolitan College of Denver.
Metropolitan State College of Denver.
Metropolitan State College of Denver.
The Roadrunners.
What was the acronym?
Do you mean the abbreviation?
The abbreviation.
MSCD.
Okay. The Ravens.
Roadrunners.
The Roadrunners. All right.
For 120 hours, that was $44,000 in tuition and fees, and that includes summer school. Some say that 15 hours is full time, but it's 12 to 15, including summer. And my goal was to graduate before I turned 30, and I started after I got out of the Marine Corps at 24. And with books, you're looking at $46,500 in-state tuition for a Bachelor of Science in Finance. Correct. which I'm happy to say I use every day. But I don't work for a bank. I don't work for a hedge fund yet, which it's a good thing I picked that degree because business degrees are, a thing. Fortunately for business degrees, they apply to all kinds of businesses. Anyway, the Montgomery GI Bill paid for 100% of my school. So I graduated debt-free. I know a lot of my veteran friends who laugh when we hear about excuses and how people are tired and whatever. In your 20s, dude, your term of fatigue is a lot different from when you're in your 30s. And
Yeah.
it switches overnight when you hit 30. Like, I'm always tired now. And I can't
Well,
imagine.
you got 2 kids.
I can't imagine what it's like when I'm 50-something. But I had a wife, a full-time job in a plumbing warehouse. And if you've ever worked in a plumbing warehouse, you know that if you show any ability to do anything, you end up doing everything, which means that you're even more tired. But you take it on because you don't want to do the menial shit anymore. So you have to put in the work to learn the interesting things like back order management and purchasing and inventory control. And I went to school full time. And I had a mortgage, all at 24. So I would arrive 30 to 60 minutes early to work. My shift started at 7, so I'd have to get up at 5.
Did you clock in so you got overtime?
No. So I'd roll in. I'd get up at 5, roll in at 6, and I'd sleep in my car. I'd pull my pillow out in my Jeep, and I'd lay the seat back. And the first couple of weeks I was there, the guys gave me a lot of shit. But in a warehouse, all you have to do is throw it back at them. And,
Right.
say things like, does it bother you that I'm better than you and I'm half your age? That kind of shit. After about a month, they'd even start to come out and wake me up when it was time for my shift, and they would let me sleep. Which I didn't realize that until I thought about it this evening and this week. But, maybe that says something. They talked all this shit, but they always had somebody out knocking on my window and get me started for the
It's
shift.
time, Matt.
That's right. Dude, I made $15 an hour at a wholesale plumbing supply house.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
And that was in 2006. Then I moved on to, I was still in school full time. Moved on to $18 an hour plus benefits now. A little bit of that 28% burden, right? As a purchasing assistant at a mechanical contractor. And a purchasing assistant does all the bitch work, just like a laborer and an apprentice does. It's the same route in construction, whether you're in the office or you're in the dirt. You always start doing the bitch work. And that's fine because you need to understand and respect the bitch work.
Well, yeah, it's the foundation.
Thankfully, the GI Bill paid for all of that. And I graduated before I was 30. Debt-free, student debt-free. And the only debt I had was my mortgage, which, was considered good debt.
Yeah, I mean,
or less bad debt.
when someone's taking on debt, a mortgage isn't bad.
At least there's an asset attached to it.
An asset, not a liability.
And your car debt is also bad debt, by the way. All right. From loan.com, average student debt for undergraduate and graduates, so that's bachelor's and master's degrees, equals about 40 grand combined. Now that's average. That's a lot of debt. In fact, if you go into doctoral programs, you get up to 60 grand really quickly. In other professional degrees, you can come in at 100 grand without even thinking about it. And that excludes medical school.
And that's total or per year?
No, that's total. That's still, remember, that's the average.
Okay.
Don't think like, don't think Yale and Harvard law degrees.
Because
those bring up the averages.
I have a cousin who's a veterinarian.
Oh, vet school is super competitive. CSU is one of the top vet school programs in the nation.
Yeah, and she's $250,000 debt.
Yeah.
300
Yeah.
debt.
Yeah, but
And still, because, I won't go down the rabbit hole, but because I give her crap. We're in our 40s now. And when I quit college, she was in high school. She's a year or two younger than me. And she's like, you can't quit school. You're going to be a loser. All the stuff that you get labeled. And I was like, what are you doing now? I was like, I'm a plumber. Probably won't be what I do for the rest of my life, but hey, I like it. I get to wake up early. I get to build shit, which, I've never got to build shit before. And she's like, oh, well, I'm going to be a doctor. And it's funny because now we're in our 40s. We have kids. Obviously, I've done pretty well for myself. And, she makes decent living, but she's a veterinarian. What I always tell her is like, I bet you wish you would have minored in business so you could actually run your own practice. Because that's when doctors make the big money, especially vets. You could be a vet and you're going to make $100,000 a year, 120, maybe like 150 at working for another vet that owns the practice. And dude, 150 a year sounds like a lot, but when you owe 300 grand in debt and you got to start a life and you have kids, man, it's not that much money.
This week we heard about Harvard declaring online only learning.
But they're charging the same?
But they're charged the same, which is 50 grand.
You heard me say this before.
50 fucking grand, dude.
I honestly think the educational system, all the way down to kindergarten, it's about to change.
It is, but let me finish. Traditionally, Harvard costs about 75 grand in tuition, books, room and board per year. That means you're walking out of Boston with 300 grand student debt. Now that's before aid and that's before their massive endowment program. Okay. But you're basically on the hook for 300 grand. Do you know how long it takes to pay off 300 grand? Well, let's look it up.
Let's see the numbers, Matt. Especially if you pay the minimum, because you know damn well they're paying the minimum. But, if you go to Harvard Law School, hopefully your practice would pay it off, right? Wouldn't that be a perk? Come work here. We'll pay your school debt off.
Well, you're going to be part of their internship program, and they're probably going to be already contributing to the endowment. I don't know how it works because I'm not smart enough or good enough. Now, remember, we said room and board, and I don't know if room and board is included in your student loan. I'm going to assume that it is not.
When I went to the good old Greeley, it was. I was able to pay that freshman dorm and food. So
here we are at 300 grand. Figure an interest rate runs you 4.66% for a student loan. 4.66% over 10 years. $3,132 per month just for your degree.
Crazy.
In Colorado, a $3,000 monthly payment buys you one hell of a house.
Yeah, I had a pretty nice house. I didn't pay that.
Correct.
But I put a lot down.
The point is that you would better get a job and you would better get a degree that's worth a shit. And what's really interesting is those who graduate with degrees in photography and fine arts,
sociology.
What do you think the unemployment rate was before
COVID?
The plague. Let's just say last year.
Photography?
Because statistics this year, they always lag, right? So let's just say last year. Fine arts, photography, painting.
25%.
11.5%. 11.5%. Dude, that's a high unemployment rate anywhere.
Right. Yeah.
And liberal arts degrees, things like an English degree, foreign languages, anthropology, archaeology, that kind of thing. I think archaeology is a science degree, excuse me. What do you think that unemployment rate is?
Well, no one's found a dinosaur in a couple of years, so.
But remember, anthropology is the study of ancient humans. History would be one of those.
Right. I don't know.
12%.
12%? And, yeah, I'm sorry, but.
And those jobs, very conveniently, also pay low wages, generally speaking.
Well, let's just, we could be pissed off all we want, but you have to follow the money. Okay? You have to follow the money. That's what I tell young people all the time. Just like the example. If you're a doctor, but you have no business sense, you're not going to make what a doctor that has business sense is going to make.
I have a figure for you of what Wall Street's position is in student debt.
Wall Street's position?
Yep.
You mean buying it up?
Yep.
Rolling it into some kind of asset class that's tradable?
Yep.
What is it?
$291 billion.
Yeah. It's big business loans.
Which would be one of the reasons that we've allowed student debt to get so high.
Well, think about it. It's 4%.
I have an even larger number for you. The Department of Education owns $600 billion in loan debt.
Wow. $600 billion?
Billion with a B.
Maybe
from which it generated $51 billion in 2013.
So if someone is out there telling you student debt should be free or exonerated, you got to flip $600 billion bill.
You have to flip that note.
Okay, Jeff Bezos, pressure's on, dude. Even though you're only worth $160 billion.
There are a few factors that contribute to this, which is I find fascinating. Because as we know, tuition has just gone way, way up, even since we graduated high school.
We got to cover costs.
Well, it's also because our tolerance for debt has increased. The way that we see money as a society, the more risk we are to take. And that's because of relatively, of course, stable and somewhat predictable returns over the past 20 years.
Right.
And not the tumult that we've experienced the last 4 months. So that's part of it. Also part of it. Yeah.
First time. I'll hear it all the time now.
I hope they give you shit for that in the channel.
Tumult.
This is from onlinecolleges.net. In 1987, students paid 23% of the cost to fund higher education. But by 2012, their share had increased to over 45%. And the reason for that, and something that you won't hear, is because when the federal government backs something, the risk of default goes way, way down, which means that because it's not my money that I'm spending and it's not my money that you're collecting, you don't care about the price or the quality of the product.
Right.
Which is why you allow liberal arts degrees with poor employment prospects to cost so much. That's just true. That's not even political. With all that debt, can you find a job as a plumber, an electrician, sheet metal worker, a welder, a carpenter, mason, iron worker, anywhere in the world?
Yeah.
Each country does have different licensing codes, but after talking to our British friends and our Czech friends, the codes are pretty similar. It's not drastic changes in terms of plumbing code. It's just residential versus commercial. It just takes some studying, but it's the same principles because which way does water flow?
Downhill.
Okay.
But if you have an electrician, I can make it go uphill.
Yes.
And more money.
Love our spark.
It's just, I lived in the era where all of us that were told, college, run up the debt, it'll pay off. Those of us that didn't go that traditional path, most of the people I know that went into the trades are doing pretty well now. They don't have much debt. They make good wage because let's just face it. If you're a good quality plumber, you're always in demand.
Especially if you can run work.
Especially if you can manage people.
Yeah,
and
running work is the...
Right. You run work. If you are fast, you make money. Quite honestly, most of the guys when they reach my age tend to go to start their own business. Now, that's a whole new trade. It's a whole new skill. And I will tell you, a lot of people fail at it because when you fall into that trap of trading your time for money, and we all been there, and you bitch about like, freaking boss doesn't do shit. He makes more money than me. Or the company, why don't they pay 100% of my medical, right? Well, when you start your own business, you realize how much of that medical insurance they were paying, how much of the perks of being in a large company you get.
In construction, that burden is about 28%.
Yeah, I mean, it usually comes out to what you're paying on your check for medical, they're paying equal. Times that by 100 or thousands of employees, it's quite a bit. Then you got 401k matching. Then you have the brand new trucks. So it's a big wake up call when people make that jump. However, now you're the boss. You're the one that has to push yourself. And you're the one who now has to start looking at expenses. Do I buy the $20 stapler for my job site trailer, or can I get away with this? But yeah, I mean, education in its whole, right? Let's just break down my story, right? I told you I went to college on a scholarship from the sale of the farm. My mom paid all my debt off. right? It was kind of the deal she made with me. She's like, well, plus she had that overwhelming society pressure that's put on parents. You need to pay for your kid's college, right? And she felt horrible that she couldn't she couldn't even buy shoes. So when we sold the farm, she made a little bit of money, so she paid my school debt off. Also, I had a little bit of debt on a truck I bought, maybe another year worth of payments. She paid that off. So I'm debt free, have a good job as a plumber. I'm very humble with getting that chance of being debt free. Now I'm working for a company paying for my schooling. Completely flip flop, right? Where it's like, hey, you're going to pay me to teach you in the hopes that down the road it pays off. Now I'm working for a company that's paying for my schooling and I'm learning on the job. Let's just face it. That is the best way to learn because every person has to learn the specifics of the job. Even if you go and get your PE, you're a licensed engineer. You start out delivering coffee to the engineers.
And plans.
And doing whatever. And if you make it through the gauntlet, then they start giving you decent tasks. And pompous kids that go to School of Mines and they're the PE, I'm going to be making $150,000 a year out of college. No, you're not.
Even in oil, you're not.
It always comes down to, do you know the politics? Can you socially interact? Are you extroverted? Are you, you can be introverted, but you need to be an introvert, if that makes sense, right? You have to be able to hold your own, just like you in the plumbing shop, right? Even if you're going to be a lawyer, right? They're not going to hire you, or you're not going to make it very far if you're not charismatic, if you don't have social skills. All the things that, although, those are the real things we should be teaching kids and our youth and young individuals.
Think of it this way, and we can talk about the interview process in a different episode. I'm going to be spending, if I'm the hiring manager, and the hiring manager is a role, sometimes you're not hiring for yourself, but when I've been the hiring manager, I've always hired for people who are going to be working for me. I'm going to be spending 8, 10, 11 hours with you every day. And I know within 12 minutes if I want you around. To your point, you can be the weirdest person and just this odd goofball whatever, but if I enjoy the vibe,
right,
I want you around.
You're going to add to my circle.
Right.
And let's just face it. Every job requires job training, no matter how educated you are. For instance, if I took a job tomorrow as a general superintendent at Global Mechanical, I got to learn their PO process. I got to learn their ordering material process. It's generally going to be the same. I need parts. Parts come to job. But what is the process?
Don't piss off your purchasing agent.
Right? And then I say all the time when they'd hire people off the streets at high level management, like general superintendent or, senior PM. And I'm like, dude, you haven't even you don't even know what a CSR is here. You don't know the batch codes. You don't know how to get widgets and code it correctly. And then now you got 400 employees on a job, a $20 million, $50 million project. It's just like, it just doesn't, you can't throw people to the wolves like that. Let's rope it into trading. Trading, it's one of those worlds where I think doctors, lawyers, engineers, highly educated individuals get super frustrated with trading. Here's why. They're generally are the types that will be good at it eventually because they understand delayed gratification because they took on that school debt. They waited 7 years to finally be called a doctor. They didn't go out and party when they had a exam the next day. Let's just face it, to be a lawyer through Harvard Business School or one of these Harvard Law School, or one of these Ivy League big schools, it's hard. You got to be smart, and they try to weed out the posers. However, going through that process, you come across this complicated, very precise world of trading that has unlimited upside, very small physical demands, very large mental demands. Normally, doctors, lawyers, and engineers thrive in this environment. They're completely reliant on their intelligence. However, in trading, you could study all you want. You could watch 1,000,000 hours of videos. You could learn. You could be the smartest guy and know every popular strategy there is out there and be able to differentiate them to where you're not just garbage head. And then some 15-year-old kid with a Robinhood account is beating you because he just doesn't give a fuck and he's just throwing haymakers and they're working. And that just eats those guys up. I mean, I'm a dyslexic plumber and I outperform them all the time. and they're pissed off because they think you have to work hard, right? In their lives, I always got the best grade. I was always able to beat anything you threw at me. And what's funny is that very ego is what's hurting them in trading.
Is trading performance the pull-up of
fitness?
Of earning?
The pull-up is it's the equalizer of all workouts. It's body weight, right? So if you're the big muscle head who packs on a lot of pounds, like for me, pull-ups have always been one of those things I steered clear of when I was powerlifting. Let's just face it. When you weigh 280 pounds, a pull-up is difficult. However, your body mass to strength index should allow you to do pull-ups. But you always come across that skinny dude, military type, right? Where they look like an average dude on the street and they could crush you in pull-ups. Mr. Fitness over there. And then they'll pump out 15 and you're like on 12. But yes, you're right. Trading is the one thing I have found in all of the tasks in my life where it doesn't care how smart you are. It doesn't care how long you studied the night before. It doesn't give a shit if you started yesterday. There's no apprenticeship. If you have capital, they invite you in just like anyone else. Now, like I've said 100 times before on the show, you're competing against Peyton Manning, but the broker's not going to turn your money away. Hey, you got 50 grand? Put it in. Guess what? You're trading. And you have a pretty good odds that you're going to win a couple trades. Now you start down the rabbit hole of mental stability. Are you getting too euphoric when you're winning? Are you putting too many trades on? Because let's remember, everything else we do in our careers, doctor gets behind on a deadline, he works harder. A lawyer has a trial coming up, he feels he's not prepared for, he pulls an all-nighter. Trading, you just lost 10%. I need to work harder. What does working harder compute to? Add more trades. And if you add those trades, like a banana head, without sound, back-tested analysis, and let's just face it, a little bit of swagger, a little bit of confidence that's going to push you through when it moves against you 50 pips because you've been here before and you're not holding on to that big loss you had the week before. That's when it works. And it doesn't care if that was a 12-year-old kid or a Harvard-educated guru, right? It just doesn't care. So I had an individual call me today who used to work for me in the plumbing trades. And he's like, hey, man, I've been seeing your content. Never heard the podcast, but he probably will now. I've been seeing your content and, I have a few $1,000s that I want to start investing in. So, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I was like, hey, dude, set up a call, because it started to become like a text. And I'm like, dude, just set up a call. Let's do this the right way. So today was that day where we talked.
AlanFX.com.
Yeah, AlanFX.com.
Schedule a call. It's free.
Yeah, it's free. He calls me and we start talking. And I was like, be honest with you, dude, because, he had like $1,200. And I go, to be honest with you, the best way you can spend that $1,200 is invest in your education. And there's a lot of good things you could buy out there. And I go, obviously, you need to find someone that you relate to. You need to find someone that's willing to, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. If they will share with you their own trading results. Now, I'm not saying the person you're going to get information from has to be trading. But if you ask them and they're like, yeah, dude, I don't trade the markets anymore. Here's why. I'm an educator now. I mean, I'm starting to realize myself, trying to build courses, trying to run courses, trying to do live events, trying to shift into that doing a podcast. It's playing its toll on my focus of trading. So I could see where if I had 50,000 followers and 5,000 people every 6 weeks running them through, I would not have the time to trade at the level I'm trading. I just know it. I can feel it already because trading takes focus. It takes getting in that zone. And so does educating. So does preparing for podcasts. So does all these other things. And it's just, maybe I'm just not in that comfort there yet, but it's difficult. But I was telling him, I'm like, look, dude, if you have $1,000 and you don't even know what PIP is, you don't even know, what a put option is, because he was gravitating towards equities. And when I said, oh, so you want to trade equities? No, stocks. And I'm like, all right, dude. I was like, the best way you could spend that $1,000 before you just lose it and then have to do it anyways, educate yourself. You don't have to go 50 grand in debt to have something. Someone's going to have to retrain you anyways. A lot of good programs out there are under 5 grand. A lot of them will teach you step by step, right? Like what I'm putting together, not to just plug what I'm doing. I have a program that's meant for someone who's listening to this podcast, who's never traded a day in his life, has no idea what platform to start with, what demo trading is. And, that's the apprentice course. It gets you there. You'll be trading a demo account with 3 or 4 great strategies I use every day in 12 hours worth of videos. The right way. Something that took me a couple years after demo trading going, I'm going to put in this home run trade because everyone on Instagram's showing me these massive wins, right? Then you're not going to lose 50% or 60% of that $1,200 before you're like, what's margin? Oh, fuck. You just take a little time, delayed gratification, patience, invest in yourself first. Soak up everything that's for free out there, but just understand it's free. So take it with a grain of salt. I finished it with him. I was like, look, man, even if you don't use me as your educator, because, he already started a Robinhood account and he put $500 in it and he's up $200, right? And I was like, good on you. But what analysis did you use for those trades? Well, honestly, the free stock they gave me when I opened the account, I just bought more of it. And it's doing really well. And I'm like, awesome. I'm happy for you. Now you have $700 to go educate yourself than $500.
Don't forget you're paying capital gains on that $200.
Well, I told him, I was like, just so you know, go ahead and try to get that $200 out of Robinhood. It's a thing.
I didn't know that. I was just talking about taxes.
Well, they will report taxes, but withdrawing from Robinhood is it's not as what's funny is a lot of people don't realize Robinhood revolutionized trading, right? They commissionless. And now Charles Schwab, they're all doing it. Well, their shtick, if you should, is typically retail traders will trade more. And they realized, why are we putting limitations on how many times these dumbasses can trade? Let's get rid of the fee we charge them. And then statistically, they'll just lose all the money they're depositing anyways. And what they do is they hold on to that money you have in their bank, and they've added a lot of friction to get it back out. No friction to get it in. Tie your debit card and blah, blah, blah. But friction getting it out, but they're gaining their own interest off your money and sitting in there. So their plan is to make interest off that money sitting there to cover what they would make in commissions. And it's a great business model, by the way, because over trading is the number one way to lose all your money. And think about it. The Charles Schwabs of the world, they weren't going after someone who has $500. Robinhood, I wish I would have done it. Hey, let's make an app. I don't know how I would navigate it, all the legalities and everything. Let's make an app where instead of buying a $1,000 TV, they'll put it in this, and they'll probably lose it all. Because let's just face it, if you're doing your charting analysis on your Robinhood, you are not trading. You're home running. Or if you watched Squawk Box this morning and some guys like, yeah, GE's a good buy, and that's how you're trading, it's going to go pretty bad for you. But to wrap it all up, man, educating yourself is very important. However, you don't have to do it the traditional way, but you are going to have to put the hard work in. You are going to have to find something you actually enjoy. I know it sounds as cliche to say, if you find something you love to do every day, you'd never work another day in your life. But it's true. So educate yourself. If you want to be in the trades, get paid to get educated. If you want to learn how to trade, I highly recommend, before you lose whatever capital you're going to use, and you will lose it eventually, seek out someone to help you, educate you, someone who's going to work with you, someone you can actually talk to on the phone. That's a big one. If you're thinking about buying someone's course that was so amazingly put together and grabbed you off your Facebook platform because they're running sponsored ads and they just pulled you in with their heartfelt message, can you talk to them directly? Also, can he prove his results if he's claiming to be a trader? Now, I don't want to say, because there's some really good educators out there that will tell you, I don't trade anymore, which is fine. But if they're portraying themselves as, hey, look at this trade I did yesterday to paid off my Ferrari, ask for verified results. If they're not willing to give it to you guys, run. I was taught, if someone's asking you for $1,000 and they're not willing to show you what they're doing, what they're about to sell you, grab your wallet and back out. Because you're probably going to be disappointed. But if you ask someone, hey, I'm thinking about buying your course, let's show me your trade. Oh, man, I don't trade anymore. I'm focusing on educating now. I mean, it's just like some of my best plumbing educators, code teachers, they're not plumbing anymore because they're so good at educating. It's perfectly fine in the trading world too. But if someone is portraying to be something and they're not, maybe you shouldn't give them money. And what I find a lot in this industry, there's a lot of douchebags out there saying they're the world's best trader just to sell you something. And then pretty easily caught out if you ask the right questions. I definitely wanted to drive that point home that they don't have to be trading. They don't even have to have a winning record, right? I'm selling a journeyman channel or it looks like I'm 60% down. And I get that question all the time. You want me to copy your signals, but you're right now your account is 60% in the red? And I'm like, yeah, dude, that's life. You know, I started a really small account. The premise of the Journeyman channel is to try to grow a small account, just like most of the people that reach out to me. And, you know, I do live training every Thursday night. But yeah, you're going to watch me struggle. You're going to watch me try to trade my way out of this mess that I got myself. The last 2 weeks have been pretty depressing, Matt. I will tell you. I know this wasn't the world's best trading episode, right? But it is important to talk about this subject. And, you know, if you're a young individual out there or, you know, someone reaching that retirement age or someone that's just out there grinding every day in their job and looking for something else that could possibly supplement some of their income, possibly become their full-time job, you don't need a big giant finance degree. You don't need to be the smartest guy in school. You just need to be able to work hard, understand you know nothing today, and it's going to take time, and just seek out help of people who have done it before. But be cautious about it because there's a lot of people out there just waiting to rip you off.
Thank you very much for listening. Please join us next week.
Over and out.
If you'd like to learn more about Clayton's signals, please visit www.alrfx.com. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram at OFPMatt.